Hey, this is Jonathan Gilliam. I'm about to start the show, but I want to give you your Monday tasking. Now, I want you sometime throughout the day or night to go into whatever room that you have where it's going to be the darkest when you close the door and shut the light off. I want you to go in there in the darkness and raise your hand up in front of you. I want you to determine whether or not the color of your skin means anything as you stand there in the dark. Does your gender, does your sexuality, does any of this stuff matter when you're in the dark by yourself? None of it matters. I want you to see that. And I want you to ask yourself, what is it in that room at that time that determines your character, that determines what your value is in life? I want you to ask yourself, are you part of the solution or the problem? Because I can guarantee you when you're in the dark with nobody around, skin color doesn't matter. Other people's skin color doesn't matter. What other people have done to you doesn't matter. And what your dreams and hopes are don't matter. What matters when you're alone in the dark is the person that you have become from the time you were born until that moment. Is there character? Are there ethics? Is there value in your life? Ask yourself those questions. And then either share this podcast with other people so they can hear this, or tell them to do it and see what they say. And with that, let's start the show.
I serve for the people in the inner city. I serve for black, for white, for Asian, for gay, for straight. I serve for everyone. And that's who they serve for.
Thank you, sir.
Don't thank me. Don't thank me. Stand up and serve. You don't have to deploy overseas to serve. You are the ones that the founding fathers decided would serve. And you, not the people here obviously, but the people are the ones who stopped serving. Do you see that? Yes. It is up to you. 3% of the population during the time of George Washington fought an entire revolution against the British. Do you get that? Yes. This amount of people right here can change the world. Yes. Are you willing to change the world? Yes. Are you willing to stand with me? Yes. Are you willing to stand with the police? Yes. Are you all willing to stand with us? Yes. Because here's what's going to happen. I'm going to say this right now. Nobody else has said it. This country is on the verge of civil war. They started it. We will finish it.
This is Jonathan Gilliam back on the Experts Podcast. And that was me today at the Back to Blue rally at the 111th Precinct in Queens, New York. And I got to tell you, folks, my hope in this country has been reignited. What I saw today, not only by the people, but by their relationship with law enforcement and the sheer number of people that came out today. Wow, what an inspiration. And that is what we need to keep up. That is what we need to keep doing, because as I explained there, and I'm going to play the full speech that I gave today, it is up to us, we the people. I talk about this all the time on this show. And people keep asking me over and over, what should we do? Well, today is a perfect example of what you should do. And then other people say, what have you done? Well, I think my resume speaks for itself, but today is an example of where we are now. It doesn't matter what I've done in the past, what service I've done. You have to be willing to step forward and take part in what's happening. Now, I saw a video today. You can see it online. It's all over the place. That in the Bronx, NYPD was trying to initiate an arrest, and some gang member who has a rap sheet a mile long ends up getting into it with the police, and one of the officers who I don't know exactly what happened, but the officer, they had somebody cuffed. They're trying to put him in the car, and really the video is just sick because of the dirtbag that is yelling stuff at the police. It's so vile that I may play part of it here just to give you a gut punch so you'll understand exactly what these cops are dealing with. But the officer lunged at this guy and was going to try to apprehend him as well. And the guy, he didn't best him. They were going back and forth pretty good, but he got turned around, and this dirtbag gangbanger got the cop in a chokehold, of all things. Yeah, got him in a chokehold. You don't hear anybody screaming and arguing about that, because that's the way the left is, and that's the way these criminals are. They use our own laws to their advantage. The same thing has happened with fundamental Islamic terrorists, and the way that they've used our own laws and our own legal system against us. It's the same way in the politics. They use it against us all the time. Look at Ilhan Omar. She is a jihadist. Yeah, she hasn't blown herself up yet, but she is right now. All the things that she has done since she came in is it appears as though she is trying to make the United States exactly like Somalia, the country that she came from. Why would you ever leave Somalia and come to the United States and try to jack things up here? You should be jumping for joy that you got out of that dirt hole. What is wrong with people that they can't figure that out? She's such a leftist idiot and a leftist plant, an indoctrinated idiot, that she can't even see the fact that she lives in a free country as opposed to the war-ravished hellhole that she came from via marrying her own brother. And now she wants to go after Christianity. I'm not going to say what I'm thinking. I'm not going to say it because I try not to curse on this show. But you can go F yourself, Ilhan Omar. That's what I feel about it. And I'm going to keep it as clean as possible. You can go back to Somalia, but you're not going to change my country into Somalia. And what I saw today, just in that one location, we walked, I don't know how far it was, probably over a mile round trip from the park to the 111th precinct, where we were met with overwhelming respect from law enforcement. And we treated them with respect. We're there for them. And we're talking like 2,000 people that were out there. I'm estimating, could have been more. I know that Black Lives Matter communist group showed up. And they had, a little interaction with us. One guy got arrested. But I'll tell you the honest truth, okay? I ended up talking to one of the guys, and I was fired up, but I'm not going to start a fight with anybody. But one of the guys, I leaned over, I had my bullhorn, and they were yelling at us. Of course, I didn't know who this guy was. I don't know who any of these people are that are from the Black Lives Matter. And they're saying something, and I said that nobody is interested in what you have to say. Literally, no one is interested at that park anyway. I'm sure there's people that are interested. Now, that individual, and I apologize because I don't remember his name. There's a lot going on, so I don't remember his name. Hopefully he's listening to this, because I do want to give him a compliment. Yeah, that's right. I went to the Blue Lives Matter march where we were in honor of police and for respect of police and to support the police. And he ended up talking to this young man. I think he's 26. That I do remember. He's a liberal from New York. And he said that several of his friends heard that this thing was going on and they wanted to come down there and see what they could do to support Black Lives Matter. And I'm telling you, we walked for, I don't know, quarter of a mile talking to each other. And not that this matters. And if he's listening, I want you to know that it just does not matter to me at all. But I still feel as though I should point it out because it makes the conversation all the more interesting. Okay. I'm a straight white guy. He's a gay white guy. Neither one of us are black. And he was protesting on behalf of Black Lives Matter. I'm rallying, not protesting. I was rallying on behalf of law enforcement and freedom in general. But the conversation that we had while we walked, and he had guts. He approached me. I don't look like the nicest guy in the world. He approached me, and whether it was a game or not with him, I'm going to go on my on the better judgment that I have. I don't think it was. I think he came up to me to talk to me for real, and I don't know if he got the response that he was expecting, but I tell you, when he walked away, I thought to myself, there goes a guy who could make a difference. That guy can make a difference. Because the conversation we had, it went back and forth a little bit. I don't know if he understood exactly where I was coming from. I fully understood where he's coming from. He's a young guy. He's been indoctrinated his whole life in school. He grew up in New York, so he's, liberal as they come. But he's a sweet person. He was a nice guy. And I don't know if it's the first time to be honest with you, first time I've ever had interaction with these protests, and there were some rowdy ones there that were trying to start stuff. That was quite obvious, and they did start some stuff. That their numbers, we were overwhelming with our numbers, so it didn't really go anywhere. And quite frankly, I'll be honest with you, there were people that showed up there today that were there to back the blue, and they are sick of it. They are sick and tired of not being able to voice their opinion and having these people come into their neighborhoods and tear stuff down, burn stuff up, tie up the streets, whatever. They're sick and tired of it. They just want to live a free life. And what the conversation that myself and this young man had was pretty interesting, pretty cool, because we actually had a conversation. That was the most important thing that came out of it. We didn't resolve anything. I didn't change his mind. He certainly didn't change mine. But we had a conversation, and we bumped elbows when he left because I didn't want to shake his hand. No, listen, let me rephrase that. I didn't care because I have antibodies, but I didn't want to shake his hands, to give him word, or maybe I picked up the virus from somebody else. But when he left, I knew that there was a possibility to have dialogue with people that don't necessarily understand why we were there. And that in and of itself gave me extreme hope. And if more people could emulate this young man, we wouldn't be in the position that we're in right now. I could guarantee you, if he and I sat down and had dinner, invited some friends with us, and we talked about the reality of what's happening, and it spread, I guarantee you we could fix this problem. I guarantee it. Because it's really not about police. It's really not about Black lives not mattering. I didn't meet one person today that didn't care about Black lives. I saw, as we were walking through Queens, we actually were the ones that were disturbing traffic. But I didn't see anybody angry. I saw people in cars for over a mile honking their horns, giving us the thumbs up, covertly showing us their Trump stuff because they care about this country. I mean, it was an interesting day, a very motivating day. From the conversation with that young man, who I hope that he reaches out to me on social media so I can, or via email. Anybody else wants to reach out to me, jonathantgilliam.com. The website's not up right now. I took the website down because I'm redesigning it, but you can still email me, jonathan@jonathantgilliam.com, or on social media, all the social medias, Twitter, @JGilliam_seal. Everything else is Jonathan T. Gilliam. But I hope he reaches out to me because it's a conversation I want to further. This is what needs to happen. Two things that happen today that need to happen. The people that want freedom, the people that believe in the importance of law enforcement and the rule of law, that love all lives and understand what the Constitution's all about and don't want to mess with it, we need to start standing up more. And we need to get out there. The other thing is, those of you that consider yourself liberal and you want to take action, I advise that you do the same thing that this young man did and don't go into the conversation trying to dominate. Go into the conversation trying to learn what the heck, what's going on? Why is this tension here? Don't think that you know everything. You know, this young guy, and again, I got to give him credit because he was very humble. This young guy didn't try to blast me with statistics or, facts and knowledge. Evidently, he knew who I was because I'm sure they saw the flyer that was going out because he said, "Oh, you're the speaker." But I've got years of experience. I'm 50 years old. I've had 4 careers, more than 4 actually. I've seen media behind the scenes like most people will never see in their lives. I've seen politics up close like most people will never see in their lives. I've seen the reality of law enforcement. I've seen the reality of special forces in the military. I've seen some stuff. And when I show up because I've thought about this stuff, not because I have an agenda, not because I'm trying to be famous, certainly not because I'm getting rich off of it. I'm not one of those people. I don't set out to do the things that I do so I can get rich and famous. Because guess what? I learned at 13 years old, actually 12, while I lived with my father while he was dying of cancer. And when he died in front of me at 13 years old, he was 41. I learned very early that life is not long and it will be over before we know it. Regardless of what happens in this country, your life will be gone before you know it. And when you lay on your deathbed, are you going to be able to do what I was talking about earlier in the beginning of this show? Look at the person that you are that's laying on that deathbed and say, I was part of the solution. I've got good ethics and morals. I care about people, and people cared about me because I brought something to the table because I'm a good person. This is how we communicate. And this is how we fight this leftist movement. And if one thing I could have expressed to him, but it wasn't the right place and time, it's that his intentions, I think, are upright. I don't think that this young man is a leftist. I think he's liberal, and that's okay. I actually think that liberals and conservatives could sit down and fix the majority of problems because, like I always say, you can't change a light bulb with an ideology. So why the hell do you think you can change all the problems in the inner city with an ideology? It's not going to happen. Why do you think you can fix healthcare with an ideology? It's not going to happen. Most of the costs that come in healthcare come because healthcare is a business, not because insurance is expensive because it's a business. Healthcare is a business. That's the biggest problem. So, liberals and conservatives can actually come to the same conclusion on a lot of these answers when you take ideology out of it. But if there's one thing I wish I could have gotten through to him, is that he's got enough sense not to follow a communist organization that uses the passion that he has to further their cause, because they don't want to fix anything. If they wanted to fix stuff, they'd be marching in the inner city where black children are being killed like bowling pins being knocked down. They would be in the inner city where elderly black people are being killed and pressured. They can't live a free life, not because they're poor. They can't even walk out of their house because they're fear of getting shot. They would be protesting and marching and holding people that live in the inner city accountable for the neighborhoods that they live in and fighting the gang members. But they're not doing that. Black Lives Matter is not going to do that, because the people that show up in support of the Black Lives fail to realize what that organization is all about. And they fail to realize where the money that flows into Black Lives Matter. And they fail to realize, in all respect to this young man and the other people that show up with love in their heart for people, you are failing to realize that what they're preaching and the things and the way that they disrupt freedom of speech for other people and the way that they cloud your judgment is a game they're playing so they can use you to cause disarray, and ultimately, along with all the other liberation theology groups, Catholic liberation theology, Black liberation theology, they are no different than if the KKK and white supremacists got in power. The only difference is they come at it from a different angle. That's it. And if you don't believe me, look up these different liberation theologies. Look at what their purpose is. Look at communism. Look at socialism. Look at fascism. Look at dictators. Look at progressivism. There are all these isms. And look at what they ultimately do throughout history. They shit all over everybody. They convince people to give away whatever freedoms they have. They take more and more money in taxes. Meanwhile, they do less and less for the people. And they preach to the people learned helplessness instead of empowerment. You know, when I look through history and I look at the Spartans, what an amazing group of people. Now, I don't know ethically and religiously, I can't say much about, their ethics or morals. But when it came to an empowered people, wow, you did not mess with the Spartans. And that's because they took ownership of their citizenry. They took ownership of their country and ownership of the defense of their country, and they took their citizenship very, very seriously. The Greeks in general did back then. I don't know what happened to Greece that they would fall that far off. I'm sure if somebody could give me a history lesson on that, I'm sure it comes down to politics, ultimately. But this is the truth. But what I got out of this today is that, and I've not caught a lot of heat from this. A few people are saying, you didn't say anything, because I said in the speech, I'm going to say something that no one else is saying. And I said, there's a war coming. That's what they thought I was saying, right? There's lots of people that know that there's a war coming, a civil war. A lot of people know that. But no one is saying that they started it and we will finish it. No one is saying that because nobody wants to lose their show. Nobody wants to lose their job. Nobody wants to be, nobody wants to take part in the fact that in order to bring this country back, we are going to have to go on the offensive. When I say we the people. Stop with these specialty groups. There's only one special interest: keeping the Constitution exactly the way it is and ensuring that everyone is allowed their freedoms and the opportunity that comes with that. That's our special interest. If that's not your special interest, I advise that you start clinging to that and make that your mantra, I guess you could say, mantra or whatever you call it. Because without the Constitution, Black lives won't matter, white lives won't matter, Jewish lives won't matter, Indian lives won't matter. You know what will matter? Women's lives won't matter. Gay lives certainly won't matter. What will matter, if the Constitution is even degraded a little bit, what will matter is what the powerful people want. And that has nothing to do with your welfare. Nothing. So all this tension that's happening, all these things that are occurring, are really for nothing for us. Nothing. And I watched a video a minute ago where this black guy looked like, I don't know the background of the story in the video, but I can pretty much tell that something must occur because I can see police lights going. And this guy's screaming. He is pissed. And at first I thought, okay, this is just another, loudmouth person out there saying whatever. But it wasn't. he says I think he said he was 31 or 32. And he's talking to a guy who is in his 40s, late 40s. It's funny because when he's talking to him, it makes him sound like 40 something is like really old. Wait till you get 50. It's not that old. But he said, he brings this other kid over. He goes, this kid's 16. And he goes, I understand what you're saying. He's saying that to the older guy. He's telling the young kid, he said, listen, whatever he did and whatever we did, he goes, I was out here. We marched before day after day after day years ago. And it didn't do any good. When you at 16, in 10 years, you're going to be doing the same thing. And you and the people that are your age better figure out a better way to do it because it doesn't work. Now, I can't get into that guy's head, but I will tell you, sometimes it doesn't matter what you feel. God will use your voice to say exactly what he feels and what needs to be said at that time. And I need to hear that. I'm sure that 16-year-old kid needed to hear it, but you all need to hear it because nothing that you're doing right now at this point in time is going to stop anything. Even what we did today marching is not going to stop anything. But here is what so many people are doing for so many different reasons that absolutely will change and stop everything. We need to stand together. It's that plain and simple. I don't care how corrupt a police department is. I don't care how vile a politician is. I don't care if the legal system is broken or if there's racists running around in a certain area. If we, the people, stand together, none of those entities can stand against us. And that one guy that came up to me today, that one young man, showed me that there is a bridge that we can all cross to stand together. We may not see exactly the way that we need to fix it, but let me tell you, that bridge is the Constitution. That bridge is freedom. That bridge is the United States. And we cannot lose that. The rest of the world cannot lose that. If the United States falls to the left, and I'm not talking about you liberals out there, so don't get your panties in a wad over this. I'm not talking about just regular liberals, right? First of all, we all need to get past that nonsense in the Democratic Republican Party. I'm telling you right now, you need to stop with that nonsense. It's all for corruption and for power. But this bridge is the Constitution. Never in history was there anything like this Constitution, ever. There were some things that were close to being similar, but never did it work out like it has. Right now, if the Constitution had not been written by slave owners 200 and I think we're at 44 years now ago, there would still be slavery today. In effect, what they wrote, because they understood rights at that moment in time, they got it. And the way they wrote the Constitution would ensure that eventually all men, all women, all races, all genders, we would all have equal rights and equal opportunity. Remember, opportunity is not something that is given for free. Opportunity it's like a job application. First of all, you got to go there and fill it out. Secondly, sometimes you got to press for the interview. And when you get the interview, maybe you don't get the job the first time, but you just keep going back and you keep improving until finally they say, well, all right, we got to hire this guy. That's opportunity. And that's what this country allows you. Now, it doesn't mean that, one of those employers may say, I'm not hiring that guy because he's got black skin, or I'm not hiring her because she's a woman. You know what? I mean, look, if you can prove that, sue them. But never let that stop you from trying to achieve your dreams. Man, you just march right over those people. And you either go somewhere else where you can prove that you can do it, or you just keep putting it in their face until they say, all right. We're going to give this guy a try. And then make them realize that the color of your skin or your gender or whatever didn't matter at all. It's whether or not you could do the job. And let me tell you something else. If you show up to a job and you take that job and you know you got it because of your gender or your color of your skin or because of your sexuality or whatever it is, whatever quota they're trying to fill, and you get that job, just know this: you are already a failure. Already. You took that job from somebody who is probably more qualified than you, and you pulled out the race card or gender card or whatever cards you may have, and you said, notice me, notice me. And that is exactly the problem that we have in this country, is that people have gotten comfortable with riding that wave or not making a ruckus about it or not standing up and say, damn it, I am the best for this job. Or saying, damn it, I will be the best for this job. You should want to be noticed for your talents and for your expertise and for the hard work that you've put into it. You should never be comfortable with being given something because of the color of your skin, just like you don't want somebody keeping you out of something because of the color of your skin. Ultimately, both of them are failures. Failures on the person that's judging you, and failures on the part of you taking the job when you're not even qualified for it. And if you are qualified for it and you got the job because of the color of your skin, I would damn sure I would look around and say, and be very concerned, because especially if your job's dangerous. You got the job, you may be fully qualified, but you got it based on a quota. You better realize that the person to your left or to your right may not be qualified and may have gotten that job based on a quota. That does not make you safe. It doesn't make you, it doesn't make you any more recognized as being great. It actually degrades who you are and what you bring to the table. So I said a lot there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a break, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to play the entirety of the speech, because wouldn't you know, this is Gilliam luck. Although Gilliam luck can go one of two ways. It could be just perfectly awesome, or it can be like this, where I did the entire march holding my phone up on Facebook Live where everybody could see what was going on. And then we get there, and when they literally looked at me and said, okay, we're good to go. I handed my phone off and it overheated. And so luckily somebody else caught the video for me. And so I have the audio for you, and I'll play the entirety. It's only 4 minutes long, and I'll play that for you now. And it kind of reiterates what I'm saying here, but it kind of goes into a little bit more detail. I'm going to cover a lot more detail about how I researched for that speech today. And it's just a 4-minute speech. It wasn't long. It was 95 degrees out there, and we'd walked a mile. We were hot. Sometimes it's not how long you speak. It's what you say when you have the time to say it. And a lot of the times you lose people after 5 minutes, especially in environments like that. So I'm going to play that speech for you. And then tomorrow, I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth about that speech and about what I was alluding to there when I talk about that war is coming. War is really here already. Civil war is already here. But there's a little bit more to that message that I think that we need to cover. And I'll probably cover that tomorrow. But let's take a break, and we'll be right back. How many of you out there have a concealed weapons carry permit? And how many of you with those permits have ever thought about where you would have to use that weapon, when you would have to draw it and defend yourself against an imminent threat of loss of life or serious bodily injury? Well, if you haven't considered that and actually trained for it in your mind, you're not qualified to be carrying that weapon. You see, in the SEAL teams and in law enforcement, all these different avenues in which I've served, that is one of the main things that we go over again and again. Where would you have to use it, and what are your rules of engagement before you actually use it? What has to happen? Now, you don't have to be a concealed weapons carry permitted person. You could just be somebody who has a family. You could be somebody who is single and lives in a high-rise in one of these cities where just it's going crazy right now. The fact is, if you have not realized that you can make educated predictions of who would attack you, why they would attack you, where and when it would happen, and how it would be carried out, you need to realize that can actually occur. You can actually forward think these things, but you have to have a skill set. Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival is a book, a best-selling book that I wrote that teaches you how attackers look at you, and it shows you how to use that knowledge to target yourself in every aspect of your life, and then turn around and build better defenses based on awareness of who, why, where, when, and how you would be attacked. Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. I've got 2 workbooks that go with it. Go check them out, folks. I'm telling you right now, this is not just a commercial. This is an offer for you to get the best type of awareness and training that you could possibly have. It's available anywhere books are sold. Amazon, Barnes & Noble. It's out there. Order it. Go get it. Give me your feedback. And if you have questions, you can always reach me on social media, and I'll answer those questions for you. Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. And let's get back to the show. Okay, so as I was saying there before the break, we're going to come along for a ride, but I'm going to play the entirety of the speech. It was like 4 minutes long. It wasn't long. And I'm going to play the entirety of that speech for you so that you can actually hear exactly what I was talking about as I've talked about on this show before, about the reality of what's happening in this country and who's actually taking charge and causing all these issues. And it was great because on this podcast, the numbers are growing on here. They really are. And I can't thank everybody enough for the word of mouth. I've talked to liberals and conservatives and people of all colors and said they really appreciate this show. And so it was really great today to be out there and share the same message that I share on here out there. And I think that people getting to see me in person and understand that I'm approachable also helps when they listen to this show, because they know that I'm not out for ego when it comes to spreading the truth. So with that, here is the entirety of that speech that I was given via bullhorn, 95 degrees in front of the 111th precinct for the NYPD in Queens, New York, for the Back to Blue march and rally that we did today.
Okay. Well, I wanted to talk real quick about statistics, okay? This is a reality. Every year, as far back as I can go, about between 140 and 180 police officers die every year in the line of duty. Did you realize that? Yes. They died. I didn't hear you. Do you realize that? Yes. They died protecting and serving you. They die rescuing children. Right now, the statistic is 1/3 of all homicides go unsolved. But you know what? That means 2/3 of them go solved. And the people that were victimized have somebody to answer to. Now, that is what happens when you fund the police and when you train them properly. Everything that you see going on right now is not the police. It's the executives, it's the politicians, it's the lack of funding, it's the lack of equipment, and it's the lack of participation by the people. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yes. We the people are the ones that will solve this problem, right? Yes. But we the people are where the problem arises from, right? Yes. So it is time for the people to stand up and for the people to stand together and start doing what they're doing right now. Stop leaving the voice. Stop giving the stage to those on the left, because it's not about liberal and conservative. It's about communist, Marxist, globalist, fascist, socialist, progressive, whatever you want to call it, they are isms. That is correct. And it all has to do with changing the form of government that you enjoy and that these officers are backed by, the Constitution of the United States. Do you understand that? This is not a joke. I served in the military, I served in the FBI for you. I serve for the people in the inner city. I serve for black, for white, for Asian, for gay, for straight. I serve for everyone. And that's who they serve for.
Thank you, sir.
Don't thank me. Don't thank me. Stand up and serve. You don't have to deploy overseas to serve. You are the ones that the founding fathers decided would serve. And you, not the people here obviously, but the people are the ones who stopped serving. Do you see that? Yes. It is up to you. 3% of the population during the time of George Washington fought an entire revolution against the British. Do you get that? Yes. This amount of people right here can change the world. Yes. Are you willing to change the world? Yes. Are you willing to stand with me? Yes. Are you willing to stand with the police? Yes. Are you all willing to stand with us? Yes. Because here's what's going to happen. I'm going to say this right now. Nobody else has said it. This country is on the verge of civil war. They started it. We will finish it. The only way that's going to happen is if we stand together. Now say it with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. To the republic for which it stands. One nation. Under God. Indivisible. With liberty. And justice. For all. I'm Jonathan Gilliam. The truth has arrived. Peace.
I had to put the truth has arrived in peace in there. That's the way I always end my show. So I guess that's the way I end my speeches now. So that's the entirety of the speech. And again, I'm going to try to cover more of that tomorrow. I just wanted to cover basically how the rally went today. And there was one other thing that I want to just tell you about, that next to the young man at the beginning of the rally and then seeing all these patriots come out for the right reasons, the other thing that impacted me so much today was that I had a conversation with two law enforcement officers, and I'm not going to say where they're from. One of them listens to this show. And so, but I don't, for the purpose of anonymity, I don't want to say where they're from, but they're both immigrants. They both came here from other countries. One of them came from a country that has been, I don't want to say destroyed, but greatly impacted by communism. I mean, it grew up in an affected area that was directly affected by communism. There's a reason why I'm being vague about exactly where it was. I didn't ask him if I could talk about it, so I just want to keep it a little vague. But nonetheless, this individual grew up in and around communism. Now, I didn't get into the aspects of the other individual's life, but he did come from another country and came to the United States and became a police officer with NYPD. Amazing. This individual, though, that I'm talking about, that came from the country that was greatly impacted by communism, grew up in and around it. He came to the United States. He becomes a Marine, and then he becomes a police officer with the NYPD. What you have to understand, the conversation that I had with this guy was so unbelievable, because he is what we would term a minority. I hate those terms, minority, and you never hear majority, but I hate the term minority, because instantly it just makes it sound like less struggling to be more. And I hate that. What are you basing minority on? The color of your skin? Because you're from another country and you come here and your ethnicity is different? I mean, isn't this the United States where the opportunity is equal and freedoms are equal? So how can somebody be a minority if you're equal? Well, that's the problem. That's the problem. And this guy doesn't recognize that. And it's fascinating because when you see him, you see an empowered individual. It reminded me very much, I think I told a story on here before about when I went to a prepper convention to sell my book. And by the way, I'll never go to a prepper convention again and sell my book because majority of preppers think they know everything about everything. And it was a total failure and wasted thousands of miles, but got to see my good buddy Birdman. So that was worth it. But when I went there, it was on an Indian reservation. And I've told this story before. And I met this guy who was, I believe he was a Cherokee, if I can remember this correctly. Now, I was on a reservation at a casino. That's where they had this. And everybody that works there was Indian. Everybody was overweight. It seemed like everybody was on a downer because everybody was like just monotone, no smiles, no frowns, they're just there. Trying to engage them in conversation, you're just there. But then this one guy walks in and he looked like everything I ever thought. And it was either a Cherokee or Apache. And I know that Cherokee and Apaches would probably crush my skull right now for getting the two confused. But listen, I haven't been around a lot of either. Right. So, but I'm inspired by all of them. So I can't remember which one he was. I'm thinking it might have been Apache, but regardless, okay. He looked like a warrior when he walked through the door. And so I started talking to the guy, and he was super conservative in as far as, not politically, but conservative in the way of like, he lived his life in a way that wasn't, he wasn't trying to change things. He wasn't trying to progress. He was just a confident, empowered individual. And I cannot stress enough the impact that this guy had when he walked through the door. There was just something different about him as opposed to all the other people that I met at this casino. And so I started talking to him, and I actually said this to him. I said, I don't want you to think I'm saying anything racist or judgmental, but I really want your opinion on this. He goes, shoot, what is it? And I said, everybody here that works this casino, they just seem out of it. They're mostly overweight and there's no interaction. I said, but when you walk through the door, man, you look like central casting for a warrior Indian. And he said, the reason why he is the way that he is because, and he didn't hesitate at all. He said it was because his father never allowed them to live on the reservation. Because when you live on the reservation, there's limitations that come to that. Yes, you get a certain percentage of money that's given to you by the state or by the reservation, I guess you would say, or by the federal government. You get basically a paycheck for doing next to nothing. It doesn't matter if you do something or nothing. You're going to get this paycheck. But his father would never take the money, and he wouldn't allow his children to take the money, and they wouldn't live on the reservation because the reservation taught learned helplessness. And it ended up limiting them, even though they got a free paycheck, it limited them. They couldn't own a house because there was no banks allowed on the reservation except for one bank, so they couldn't get mortgages. There was all these rules and regulations that had to go with it. It was as if, strangely enough, that they had created these reservations that Indian politicians and non-Indian politicians had come together and created a system that took the very people that were supposed to be recognized as Americans, as Native Americans, and instead of giving them the freedoms of everybody else, they stuck them on a reservation and gave them just enough money so that they would never leave, never try to be anything else, never strive for perfection. They would cling to this paycheck. And that's his words. That's the way he explained it. So his father instilled in him never to take that money, never to live on the reservation. I mean, he loves the reservation. He loves his heritage, but not what it's become. And when I talked to this individual today, this amazing American who came from this country that was ravished by communism, he came here and did the same thing that guy did. He refused handouts. He refused to be a minority. He refused to be counted as helpless. And his entire life, from what I could see, and the man that I met, was extraordinary. Absolutely extraordinary. And so today was just an amazing, groundbreaking day. I salute that guy, both guys that I met that were law enforcement officers, that were immigrants. There was females behind us, white, black, Latino. There were males, all the same races, and there were EMT individuals that were walking by. And then when we walked around the corner, all these law enforcement officers were out there. We all gave them elbow bumps or fist bumps, and they were all out there. And they said thank you to us. They weren't out there to bust our chops. They weren't out there to stop us from voicing our opinions. I don't know what their political values are, left or right, or what their ideology is. What I do know is that they saw that we showed up to support them. I do know the predicament that they're in. It's a horrible predicament. This state in general, let alone across the nation, has hamstrung the cops from doing their job. And instead of building community between the police and the inner city and these, listen, it's not everybody in the inner city. There's troublemakers in there. There's thugs, criminals, and then there's good people that live there, but they're all poor. But the city's done nothing to build all the money. I remember when I was driving in today and I was seeing these potholes. And then I looked I was looking on social media and I saw a picture where they were painting Black Lives Matter on one of the streets in New York. Great big mural using this expensive paint that they're using. This is like street paint, right? And the mayor's up there and his wife and all these other whack jobs. And there's a huge pothole that they're painting over on one of them. They could have spent the money from that on the pothole and then built community relationships between law enforcement and the community for free. But they don't do that. Everything they do is divisive. And I hope this young man that I met today at the beginning of the rally listens to this entire thing, because this is what I want to leave you with right now, is that if what you believe in divides, then you believe in the wrong thing in this country. If what you believe in unites all people, you know you're on the right track. You know you're on the right track. So this message is to all the law enforcement officers that are out there in this country. Just like the officers that I talked to at the 111th Precinct in New York City today for the NYPD during the Back the Blue rally, I'm going to pose this question to the rest of you across the nation. You know, the left is itching for a civil war. They are pushing it because they want chaos in this country. Patriots don't want it. But the patriots, the same ones that stand with you and have been standing up for you, when it comes time for them to step up and engage offensively, are you going to be willing to stand with them? Because just like I tell them all the time, I'm telling you, it's not something that you should wait on until it happens to make that decision. You need to decide now. I'm Jonathan Gilliam. This is The Experts. The truth has arrived. Peace, and we're out of here.